to have a hard conversation with you today. And I want to talk about poverty and what it means. And I want to break this down because I'm going somewhere with this today. I want a biblical interpretation of what poverty is. In the book of Proverbs, in chapter 10, verse 15, this is the New International Version, it reads this. It says, "The wealth of the rich is their fortified city, but poverty is the ruin of the poor." Poverty is the ruin of the poor. There are many versions of this. A King James Version says something else. But I remember one of my pastors, Dr. A.R. Bernard, who said many years ago, and this always struck with me, the destruction of the poor is their poverty. Now, what does that mean? In the literal sense, if someone is poor and they don't have money, it can lead to destruction and ruin. But there are all sorts of types of poverty. There is financial poverty, of course, but there is also poverty of the spirit and also poverty of the mind. And that's what I want to focus on today. During Black History Month, I focused on black inventors and scientists, and I was going to wrap up with that. But now we're into Women's History Month, but I still want to focus on what this means. People who are ignorant of the facts, we're talking about blacks and whites, but specifically the white supremacist who is ignorant of the contributions that people of color, African Americans, have made to mankind. And they're ignorant of this because they haven't been taught about it. And unfortunately, as I have said before for Black History Month, the focus always has been on what is acceptable to white folk, athletics, entertainment. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. These are great contributions. But to the bigot, they don't care about that. And they certainly don't care about Dr. Martin Luther King because that has nothing to do with them or people in the civil rights movement. What I've always wanted to focus on for Black History Month is to let people know the things that they have not seen or heard in their classrooms, in oral and written history. Things that are very important to mankind because you'll find a lot of people, especially the bigot and the white supremacists, that blacks have done absolutely nothing to promote mankind. So we talked about Dr. Daniel Hell Williams, who performed the first open heart surgery. Okay, it wasn't DeBakey. We talked about Lewis Latimer, who developed a carbon filament for light bulbs, worked with Thomas Edison. We talked about Dr. Charles Drew, for instance, who developed huge blood banks where millions of lives were saved as a result of that in blood plasma. But since it's Women's History Month, I want to focus on what black women have done to promote mankind and its progress. And so we're talking about the poverty of the mind. And what I want to do is enrich all of you. The things that have been done by black women, and I'm going to highlight just two in this segment, that will give you an idea. If you didn't know this, you'll know now. And then for the bigot, the same thing. And some might say, like, what difference does it make? Well, it makes a lot of difference. You know, Jesus came down here. He didn't have to come down here. But he came down for the sick. He said, I didn't come down here for the healthy. I came down here for the sick. The people who were poor in spirit, who were poor in their body, who were poor in their minds. So here we are. We're talking about the destruction of the poor is their poverty. We want to change that. I want to help change that. So we're not going to talk about, say, for instance, Fannie Lou Hamer, fantastic, Sojourner Truth, absolutely great leaders. But the bigot doesn't really care about them. The bigot doesn't care about Stacey Abrams or Kamala Harris. But they perhaps might care about women or people, human beings, who have done things that affect their everyday life. Okay? That's where I'm going today. So I'm going to talk about two. There's one whom many of you may not know, but her name is Dr. Shirley Jackson. Now, think about this, and I'm going to read some of this stuff. Remember the days, if you're old enough, before call waiting and caller ID? If you answered yes, you're probably old enough like me, okay? So you might have great appreciation for the research that Dr. Shirley Jackson did. Now, her work led to those innovations along with the developments of in-touch tone phones, portable fax machines, and the fiber optic cables that made your long-distance phone calls come in crystal clear. This is Dr. Shirley Jackson, a black woman. Dr. Jackson was the first black woman to earn a doctorate from MIT, the first black female president of a major technological institute, and went on to become the first black woman appointed chair of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. She did things that impact all of our lives, whether you're black, white, blue, green. This is Dr. Shirley Jackson. A lot of people don't know about her. Like they didn't know about Helen Johnson, who worked for NASA and helped map out, the pathways, for the Apollo missions to the moon, the first one in the space shuttle. I've got another one for you here. I'm sure most people now have home security. Of course, it's this new thing, this ring thing where you can see on your phone, someone outside. You could be in Istanbul and you can see someone who might be trying to rob your house. Well, there's a woman by the name of Marie Van Britten Brown. Now, she and her husband, they noticed increasing crime in their New York neighborhood, okay? And coupled with the fact that police were slow to respond, many people in black neighborhoods know all too well about that, they set out to make their home feel safer. So in 1966, Marie Van Britten Brown and her husband filed a patent for a household closed-circuit television system. They got the patent for that. Now we have home security. This was done by a black woman. Now, these are just two, and there are many more. Once your mind gets filled with this, then the stereotypes go. And that destruction of your mind is starting to turn from destruction into reconstruction. So you can get a better picture of the accomplishments of all sorts of people. But particularly we're talking about black folks, because there's a lot of folk out there that don't think we've done nothing. So for Women's History Month, I want to give you an assignment, and I want you to start looking up these things, these names that I mentioned, Dr. Shirley Jackson, Marie Britten Brown. I want you to remember these names, but there are more. And this should put you on a thirst to look for more of these people, particularly women in Women's History Month, because they're there. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. We can change that by showing people and guiding them to the truth. This is my quest for, there's no reason for me to talk. There are a million voices out there talking about all sorts of things and opinions. I'm trying to focus on fact, because I think a steady diet of the truth makes a difference. Now, you may not get everybody. There's some people that are just hopelessly lost. But again, Jesus came down here to save souls. He didn't save everybody. He told disciples that they go to a city and knock on a door, and people didn't want to listen, dust off your shoes and walk off. But try to save. That's what I'm trying to do in my small way. And by giving you this information, you can go out there armed with this, even if it's for nobody but yourself, but be equipped to educate people and correct them when they're wrong. We are a wonderful people. We are a proud people. We have done a lot to the advancement for mankind and have done things that have helped everyone. The destruction of the poor is their poverty, but reconstruction of the mind is a reality and something that we need to be on see you next week.